Hey, what's up, guys? My name is Mike Brockway. I'm a real estate investor and business owner in the Denver area, and welcome to the Invest in Denver podcast. I'm here with my buddy Ian. Stoked to be here, man. And just for the record, I love investing in Denver because there's almost 300 days of sunshine here. Don't tell too many people about that. I don't want too many investors flocking to the market, but I just love the fact that Denver's an amazing area for business and just personal lifestyle. Just a great balance between the two.
Yeah, man, I totally agree with that. Especially I didn't realize how big a business solar panel installation was until I actually moved here, because a lot of houses have solar panels, solar everything, just because the sun really beats down here in Denver, you know? So on all of my investment properties here, I have solar panels. I take full advantage of that 300 plus days of sunshine. It's crazy.
Nice. Yeah, it's definitely wild. I just bought a property earlier this year that had solar panels on it already, and that was a huge bonus. They already paid off. I actually haven't even figured out how to use them yet, but my electric bill is really low, which is amazing.
Yeah, no joke. And so they are paid off then? Like no financing, no nothing like that?
Yeah, no financing, and that was definitely a plus with buying the property. I think I kind of valued them at like, I don't know, $20,000, I would say.
Yeah.
It's a 2,500 square foot property, and definitely doesn't hurt to already have that with the property that was also turnkey.
Yeah, I was a little afraid. The most recent property that I'm installing solar panels on, it's about 1,800 square feet, one upstairs, one downstairs. And I was just worried that, like, let's say if snow were to cover like maybe 50% of the panels, that it just wouldn't be able to perform as expected, like during the winter months. So I have the output capability of, like, say, I think 110% of what my normal everyday usage of that electricity is. So
Nice.
I don't know, maybe that's a little bit overkill, but I don't know. Is that something that you're looking for too, as far as how many panels or how much the output is?
Yeah, I wish I knew. The only property that has panels for me is the one that I bought with panels, and I think the panels are slightly undersized, but I mean, I think it's still a good investment regardless if you're at like 90% or 110% of your electric usage. Um, at the end of the day, you're giving more power back to the grid, and that's, keeping Denver green. Um, my question for you is, like, do you use the same solar sales rep or solar company every time? Like, and what made you pick that company really quickly?
Totally. No, that's good. That's why I like to have you do the intro of it. It just sort of like goes on so organically. But anywho, this guy I actually appreciated because he was hustling. He saw that
Hmm.
he was just going through new homeowners within the area. And he saw, like, hey, I saw that you recently bought your place back in May. He came over like end of May or early June of this year, 2022. And I was wondering if I could talk to you about solar panels. Like, I got some on all my other properties. Let's go hear you out. So I just wanted to give him the time of day and hear him out, and sounded like a solid dude. The thing is
Hmm.
that I'm going through some permitting issues with the sunroom because they built it without it being permitted through Adams County. And so right now I'm going through some retroactive permitting, which is another issue in itself. And then now that we're going through Christmas time, and I probably won't hear from them again until like mid-January or something like that, which is
Sure.
kind of a bummer. But I don't have a preference, to be honest. And all of them seem to be okay. I usually have to poke and prod at what the installation is like, or what the timeline is, or what the process is, and all that good stuff.
Hmm.
So I don't have a certain recommendation for you, unfortunately.
Okay. I got two
Yeah.
good friends of mine. I just know they're good guys, honestly. My buddy Kyle, my buddy Glenn, they both sell panels in the area. Kyle actually worked with Chad on your team to buy his first Airbnb. Kyle
Oh
Rocco,
yeah.
he sells
Yeah,
solar
yeah, for
panels.
sure.
Super knowledgeable. If anyone out there is looking for solar on their properties in Denver.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple other guys. Mike, they're probably all on the same team. But
Yeah.
Kyle's a really cool dude. And I think he's doing the house hacking thing as well.
Yep.
Short-term rental, I mean, seems to be the best bang for your buck, especially when you're house hacking at the same time. But
Yeah.
let's
He's
start from
he's
the beginning, man. Again, I appreciate you just being here, Mike. I appreciate just the conversation already. I've seen you out and about with all these other real estate networking communities, and you just seem like really cool guy to even get to know more than just like a 5 or 10 minute talk that that amount of time is all we usually have at these networking events. So I'm glad I get to have you on for like 45 minutes to an hour. So I appreciate your time, man. With that being said, like, I'm curious, like, hearing how you got to Denver. I mean, I know you grew up in New York and got your MBA over there, but what's this quick sequence of events that led you to living in Denver and investing in Denver?
Yeah, it's a good question, man. Yeah, I'm looking forward to our conversation as well. So I was living in New York, so that's where I was from, and I was working a job that I didn't love. I was in it for about 3 years in financial services. I did some private wealth management at a Goldman Sachs company, and it was great on the front end. I learned a lot, but I was really ready to switch gears from a career standpoint as well as a personal standpoint. And at that point in time, because I wanted to switch jobs, I just had an itch to go out of state and live elsewhere outside of New York. So I quit my job, packed my things, and drove across the country to Denver, Colorado. I had a couple of buddies out here already, and they had said great things. And to be honest, I'd visited Denver prior, and I didn't necessarily fall in love with the city. It wasn't until I got here and I got situated and I made a new friend group, where I was like, wow, I think I can see myself in Denver for a number of years. And now it's been about 9 years, which is crazy to think about. So I landed here, got another job in finance, did that for about 3 years until I quit that and started my own business. And as a side hustle, I was investing in real estate. Bought my first property here in 2015 after I moved here in 2014.
Okay. So 2014 is when you started moving over here. 2015 is when you bought your first property, yeah?
Yeah. Yep. I had a 1-year lease for a rental in Louisville, Colorado. And once that expired, I kind of aligned my purchase with the expiration of that lease.
Yeah. And even though over the course of 7, 8-ish years that you've been here, a lot of people that have been here since about 2015, they say that Denver has just turned over a new leaf. There's so much going on with it, especially with Rhino Art District going on. I feel like the state bird should be the crane with how many cranes and developments going on these days. It's crazy. Yeah. I mean, even as an outsider, like I'm from San Diego and coming into Denver, the city itself, I guess I don't have that much background on it, but I felt like it was already a developed city. But I know with Megan Blythe, who's been here for like several years now, she was like, no one even wanted to go to Denver. And here we are now, people are flocking to it, especially for millennials. I think the last I heard, 40% of the population were millennials, like that 25 to 35-year-old demographic. So was that another reason why that you moved over to Denver? I guess I'm curious, what made you stay? What's another reason why? I mean, other than maybe your friends, that you just were like, yeah, this is the place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just seeing that strong growth from a job and business standpoint. I mean, like you said, there's so many cranes, there's a lot of development going on. I think there's a crane counter website out there or something like that. And it's just wild, like the development that was happening, right? And I didn't necessarily stay for that reason. It was more so like that reason plus the real estate appreciation and the growth of the city and the surrounding areas combined with the lifestyle aspects of it. I mean, Denver has a lot to offer. Like you said, a very young, demographic, very like health forward demographic as well, very active area. And all those things combined is really what made me stay. I'm a snowboarder. I do some backcountry snowmobiling as well. And like, you really can't beat the things that the city combined with the mountains have to offer. And that's what's kept me from a personal standpoint. I also felt like I just put some roots down here buying real estate. And I'd say maybe it's a blessing and a curse, but when I was starting off, I was very hands-on, and I still am to a certain extent. And I just felt like, I'm going to build a foundation here. I'm going to invest properties here. I'm going to create a scalable real estate investing business here. And it just made sense for me to buy and stay in Denver just to build the teams and systems and have those in place. Not to say I wouldn't start investing out of state, but right now during this season or this chapter, I'm trying to scale something in Denver and Colorado.
Yeah. Let's start with your first property. I know I've listened to a couple of your other podcasts where you were a guest on and talked about your story a little bit, but to my knowledge, you started with house hacking. That's how you started investing in Denver. And it's not like I feel like at the time you didn't know what it was called, and you didn't even know that this was a thing, a strategy. So what was that journey like? And when did the light bulb click on for you? And we're like, I could do this. This is kind of cool.
Yeah, good question. I just wanted to kind of live the American dream and own a house, honestly. When I was in New York, I was trying to buy a property, and I'm glad I put that on hold because I eventually moved out here. And I just want to own a house. And my metric that I was looking at was like price per square foot, because in my mind, that was a value play, right? If I can get the biggest house for the least amount of money, like that should hopefully play out for me, right? And this is before I knew what Bigger Pockets was and before I knew what house hacking was. And at the time, I was living with two friends of mine, and they had essentially agreed to move into the house that I purchased if it was somewhat close to Boulder where they worked. I was working in the Denver area at the time, down in DTC. And so I picked Westminster, Colorado. The property is like 3 minutes from the highway, Highway 36, which was undergoing a ton of construction at the time. They were just widening that highway. So it just made sense for me to buy in Westminster so they could move in, they could commute to Boulder. I could live there, obviously, and commute to Denver. And I think my mortgage or my payment on the property was about $1,300. And my two roommates at the time, they both paid me $500. In my eyes, that was a great deal. I mean, I was covering most of the mortgage. I had some expenses on top of that as far as maintenance and whatnot. But that was just a great way to hedge my living expense and live with buddies. And then eventually they wanted to be like back downtown Boulder, or they wanted to move out and do their own thing. And at that point in time, I just had other friends move in. And then eventually I got to the point where I was just putting the rooms for rent out on places like Facebook and Craigslist, just looking for young professionals that I would get along with and want to live with. And before you knew it, I was living for free and, making, I think, close to $1,000 a month because I had more roommates. It was a 5-bedroom house, 3,000 square feet. I think it was 3.5 or 4 baths. So massive house, very conducive for roommates. And I eventually added a second kitchen in the basement to make it a non-conforming, I guess, 2-unit. Had a mother-in-law down there, which further expanded the ability to house hack.
Yeah. A lot of people have that issue with, man, I don't want to live with roommates. Let's say they're on the older side, mid-30s or whatever they might be. Or they just like their private space, right? They just have to look for that. Let's say they live in the basement or the main floor and then rent out the other one, whichever they're not living in, where you get your own separate space, you get your own kitchen and all that good stuff. So I guess for a lot of people, I mean, I myself being a house hacking agent, a lot of people have those qualms about house hacking in general. So I guess what were some of the big pain points with you owning that property and them realizing like, hey, Mike, you own this place, right? Like, I'm your buddy here. Do I have to pay you? Like, is this a necessary thing right now?
Yeah, that's it definitely was a topic of conversation, especially as I was going down the road to talk about buying the property, because it was definitely contingent upon the idea that they would live with me and help pay the mortgage, right? So basically what I did, I took our existing lease that was for the three of us, and I divided that by 3. We were each paying about $650 at the time per person plus utilities, right? And so I basically made them a deal like, hey, you guys pay me $500 each. You'll have a bigger house, you'll have a garage, better spot to live, and you're going to pay me less money. So for them, I'd say it was a pretty easy sell. They had added value and they were paying less money for it, right? So it wasn't too bad. I think as I had other friends move in down the road where I was charging closer to market rent, that's where the conversation was harder. But for them, I even kept it below market rent, right? I was like, hey, like typically a room rental in this area would be X, but I'm only going to charge you Y because we're friends. But if this, someone else moves in that I don't have a history with, they're going to pay this. So don't tell them that you're getting a deal, So all my friends that moved in, they all felt good about it. We kind of met in the middle, and overall it was a pretty positive experience.
Yeah, so good. Especially if you make it a deal for them where, hey, bigger space, lower rents, utilities included, or whatever that might be. That is huge, especially for them getting to live with you, less qualms about it, no fights about it. Of course, like everything's written out in the lease. But there is something I listened to today. If you're familiar with Alex Hormozy, business guy himself, he was talking about having this test prep tutoring business. And he initially said, I mean, I'm trying to condense this in such a small time frame, but basically like a lot of tutors these days have a one-to-one relationship. You know, you teach a certain subject for 1 hour of your time, and you're limited by your time because you're only doing a one-to-one relationship or business transaction, right? And you're charging maybe like $60 an hour, right? But if you were to do like, say, a group setting, if you were to bring that same teaching to, let's say, 8 people, but you charge them, let's say, 2/3 of the cost. 2/3 of the cost of 60 is what, 40, give or take? Yeah, 40.
Yeah.
And then you times that by 8, you're now making 320 per hour. So it's just that business mindset of it. Like for them, it looks like a good deal. And it's still a small enough class for them to like still get the information going. And now you're building a community rather than that one-to-one relationship where it feels very solo, like a solo practice, you know? It sounds like that's exactly what you're doing here, like making it more of a business transaction and like how can both parties win in this?
Yeah, I think that's one of the great things about house hacking is you can make it scalable and make it a win-win. So if you buy a house that's big enough or has enough bedrooms, or you figure out how to add bedrooms to that property, you can charge below market rent and keep everyone happy. And at the end of the day, just like Alex Hormozy is saying, you know, you're still making more money because it's a little bit more scalable, right? So that's why bedroom count is so important with house hacking. We kind of talked about like, hey, you know, there's pros and cons of house hacking, right? That model is definitely scalable because you can have up to 4 or 5 roommates, unless you add a second kitchen, then you can even go even further, right? You might run into some regulations with the city, but for the most part, if you keep your neighbors happy, you should be fine. That's kind of how I rolled with it. But eventually, I just wanted to have my own space, right? So I moved on to a duplex and house hacked that as well. And it was kind of like I like to say house hacking is the gateway drug to becoming a real estate investor because it's the easiest way to get into the game and see real estate paying dividends, and then move on from there to something that might be more conducive for your lifestyle.
100%, man. And even people are getting into house hacking with even 0% down, whether that's through CHAFA grants, down payment assistance programs, or even like with the physician's loans, and seeing what people, like what my buyers are doing right now in order to get into the real estate game. I wish I knew this stuff. I wish I knew the available resources for me when I first started house hacking back in San Diego, before I committed to like, what, 35 or 40 grand between me and my wife. I mean, sure, we used like an FHA loan, but on an $815,000 property, duplex in San Diego, I mean, that's a significant amount of change. So we were borderline broke for a lot of our career, like starting out, you know? So I guess going from that house to your duplex, your first house to your duplex, what were some of the transitions that you had to go through in terms of, okay, it's no longer an owner occupied home. So maybe you had to change insurance. Maybe you had to look for a property manager, or did you actively manage it yourself? What were some of the transition points that you had to work with in order for you to comfortably live in the duplex?
Yeah, so I definitely changed my insurance up. I have a good broker I work with, and she can shop different carriers, but we essentially just switched the policy to become a property for a rental. And then the new property became my primary residence. I financed it as my new primary residence. And I was past, I think this was about a year later when I transitioned. This is also when I still had my W-2 job. So it was very easy to get financed for that loan. And I think the biggest thing as far as like management goes, I continue to self-manage, and I still self-manage right now. I do have a couple assistants that help with things here and there and part-time help, but primarily I'm running point on that. The biggest thing is just trying to keep that dynamic in that community and that house hack, because when you're there, like you're the anchor, you're the owner, you're making sure everything is the living space is good, and you know there's not like trash accumulating, or the people aren't putting too much stuff in the garage, stuff like that. You kind of are able to keep an eye on things firsthand, but once you move out of that house hack, it's very important to keep that, I guess, that community or that living dynamic, so the house doesn't get trashed, right? And as you have turnover, that new person wants to move in, and it's a good group of people. I think it was, for me, that was one of the things I noticed. It was harder to manage that than I thought, but I just didn't give it the thought at the beginning. I was like, oh, it'll be fine, right? But I'd say throughout managing that property for a couple of years, I was like, okay, like here, I basically learned a lot about managing a co-living situation that I didn't think about on the front end, right? Just like anything else, you learn by doing. And I definitely learned about managing a property like that. And then I learned about managing the duplex as far as like having a tenant that had his own separate space. I had my own separate space upstairs. The only thing we shared was the garage at that point in time, and then maybe the backyard. So got a little taste of house hacking on two different levels.
Yeah, for sure. Especially with that chemistry is such a good component to keep in mind as far as like actively managing it. Because for YouTube, I do a lot of like vlog house hacking tours. Like I've done with like Dee Valentini, Brian Balducci, Ashley, just seeing what these capabilities, like what the returns can be. But honestly, what the most even I get out of it is from how they maintain that co-living space. And something as basic as get 2 refrigerators for places that have 5 or more bedrooms. Like I would have never guessed that. Then I realized like, oh yeah, I mean, because people might do a Costco run and it just makes total sense from that part, you know? Or even something as basic as what the common areas are like, streaming services, how they manage utilities. As far as I'm curious with you, like with your first property, did you have utilities included in the rent and then you just had all the bills go to you and you pay it separately? Or how did you manage that in terms of, like managing the utilities?
Yeah, good question. So at first because I was living there and everything was in my name, it was pretty easy for me just to do nothing and leave it in my name. So what I was actually doing at first was like, hey, like utilities will be split evenly between every roommate. And I basically took the total cost of all the utilities and then divided it by the number of roommates. And they paid like to the penny what the costs were, divided amongst everyone there. So if there was 4 roommates, it divided by 4. If there was 5, divided by 5, right? But what I found was that was just like administratively tough for me to do because it was extra work, right? And so after talking to our good friend Craig Curlop, Craig was like, hey man, I just charge $75 a month per person. And, you know, for the most part, that's going to cover your expenses. But in my mind, I was worried that if it was flat rate, tenants would like abuse the utilities, like leave lights on, like jack the heat or the AC up or down, right? But honestly, I think it's a valid concern, but it really wasn't worth me going that route anymore. So I started charging $75 per person, and that's worked out for me. There's one property I still have that still has, I guess, roommates, and they all pay $75 per person. And typically I make a little money on utilities each month. It's kind of like a cover your butt approach on utilities for $75 a head. And if you have a 2-bedroom, right, and it's 2 people, you might need to charge more. But just figure out what that number is and roll with it. It's just the easiest way to do it, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's almost like cleaning fees with your short-term rentals, right? I mean, whatever that cleaner fee is, you just incorporate that and roll it over into the guest fees, right?
Yeah.
I'm breaking even on that, making sure that each of the transactions of the cleanings, every turnover matches what I have to charge for, towards the guests. So it honestly all just comes down to what are those expenses are like, and can you roll that over into the tenant, you know? So, I mean, we'll definitely get into the short-term rental side of it too, because I'm curious how Zen House is doing. And even with your next property too, over in Wheat Ridge, I guess a quicker sequence of events. So going from the duplex, how many properties do you have now in the Denver area? I know it seems like Wheat Ridge was your go-to initially, but what's your portfolio look like right now?
Yeah, so right now I'm currently holding, I guess, 5 properties. One is my triplex in Wheat Ridge that I converted to a 4-unit. 2 of those properties are non-conforming duplexes. One is like a high-end single-family luxury property that you referred to, Zen House, my short-term rental. One of my 4 short-term rental units that I have. And then I also have a warehouse over in Montbello that I purchased for a business I own. And that one's actually currently listed for sale. So hopefully that sells within the next 6 months. If it sells at the price we want or close to it, that should be a nice liquidity event for me. But yeah, right now I'm just holding those 4 properties. I guess if you want to count another one, I also own a duplex that I just bought a couple months ago with a buddy. Him and I went 50-50 on it. That's a full gut remodel that will be turned into 2 Airbnbs, 2 short-term rentals. And then, like you mentioned, I'm under contract to hopefully close next week on my next higher-end single-family short-term rental in Wheat Ridge. So happy to talk about any of those.
Oh, man. Do we have time for this? That's the big
Right.
question. But I do want to go something a little bit more umbrella term, though. I mean, you mentioned that like going from triplex to a fourplex. And I know earlier in the conversation, you mentioned that like earlier on in your career, you like to do everything yourself. I mean, with a lot of these projects and a lot of these, I mean, we even mentioned off recording that you're just bogged down. You're a busy dude right now. So at what point did you realize like, hey, my time is super important to me and I have higher value items that I could work on myself? At what point in your career did you realize like, okay, this is the stopping point where I got to stop working on my own projects. I got to hire this out.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think when it started to impact my social life, that was like kind of the tipping point for me. When I was like, I was making a lot of sacrifices personally, which I think is very important when you're starting off. I mean, you are going to hustle for a period of time and you're going to have to get scrappy and you're going to have to work hard, but just make sure you attach rewards with those goals or those achievements, right? And make sure you take that time off or you buy yourself that thing that you wanted because you hit your metrics or your checkpoints, right? But as soon as I realized that I was, a year had gone by as an example, and like I hadn't traveled very much, right? That's when I was like, okay, I need to prioritize those things in life like travel, because that's why we do what we do as real estate investors, right? We're all going for that end goal or that financial freedom. And what's the point if we're just working all the time? And this comes in seasons, right? Right now I'm in a very busy season. Right now we're remodeling that duplex I mentioned. I have a business partner there. Well, hit some roadblocks there where our general contractor is going to be less involved than he was supposed to be. Therefore, I have to put my GC hat on and manage the subcontractors a little more heavily than I wanted to, right? And there are some things that we were picking and choosing as far as what does it make sense for me to spend my time on when it comes to that remodel. I had, as an example, like the garage space, we're going to finish that and create a game room in there. We're also putting a laundry room in the garage so the cleaners can have 2 sets of washer and dryers when they do those turnovers. And that's a pain point I've seen through my Airbnb short-term rental experiences. When they go to turn over a property that's large, they can't wash all those linens on site because there's only 1 set of washers and dryers. So now most of my properties actually that I use for short-term rentals have 2 sets side by side, so they can come in there, bang that out. That's faster for them. It's cheaper for me as far as the cleaning costs go. But long story short, I decided that I was going to run point on finishing the garage, getting utilities to the garage, getting the laundry room built, and I was letting my GC handle the interior of the 2 units.
Okay. Staying on that same vein of the washer dryer situation. So right now I'm going through that same issue with my current cleaners where my washer dryer, well, I guess I'll preface this with, I have 3 sets of everything, 3 sets of linens, duvets, pillowcases, what have you. And I have a total of 6 people could stay in there, 2 queens and 2 singles. So as of right now, they're offloading all of the like the linens, the laundry and all that good stuff off site to wash and bring it back the next time that they have to clean. And all they have to do is just change out the already clean linens, like stacked in the supply closet, switch it out with the old stuff. The old stuff goes off site to get clean. And then it sort of goes in that sort of rotation. Is that not something that you were entertaining, or maybe like the cleaning fees were too hefty based on the size of your place? Why would you want to have 2 washer dryers installed versus just have it done off site?
Yeah, that's a good question. And we actually, one property that it has a couple sets of washer and dryers, but one set's in the garage and one set's in the basement unit. So when they turn over the upstairs unit, they have to take those off site because they don't have access to the washing machine in the basement.
Mm.
So there's still some situations where my cleaners will do it off site, but they'll typically charge me. I feel like they charge me more time, right? Because they have to be at the property for the turnover, and while they're cleaning, they can be running doing the laundry right at the same time that the loads can be going. So I've just found that they've charged me a little bit more when they take it off site and they're creating, more dollars per hour doing it at home or whatnot.
Yeah.
I've also thought about having this outsourced to a company that just does laundry. But for me, it was another logistical, I guess, headache that I just didn't want to deal with. You could hire a laundry service where they picked it up, cleaned it, dropped it back off, right? And if you have 3 sets, like you said, there shouldn't be a situation where the pickup of the delivery doesn't align with having enough sets of linens to service the Airbnb, right? But for me, it's just one of those things. I was like, I'm going to keep my life simple, and if I can add a second set of washers and dryers, I'm just going to let them do it on site. They do the loads run when they're cleaning. There's efficiency there, and then I don't have to worry about coordinating with this third-party company as another solution to drop things off and pick things up. And as I'm self-managing, it just was in my head a little bit easier. May not be the right solution for everyone, but for me, that's what I ran with, and that's kind of what I'm going with at this point in time.
Yeah, it's almost like it seems like it's almost like just a one fixed cost where you have the washer dryer, the extra hookups, and now you don't have to worry about all that extra maintenance or the admin. I mean, it seems like throwing money at it and getting it fixed, and you're like, okay, now I have no more headache in regards to getting those linens turned over at the right time, at the right speed. I know it stays on site the whole time. So maybe that in itself is already good peace of mind for you, especially if you're actively managing these short-term rentals too. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And there's another small component as well as the duplex being an example. We're remodeling that place, and it's basically a full gut as far as like cosmetics go. And we're basically taking the wall down that separates the living room and the kitchen to make an open concept feel. And in that, I guess, wall or that area, it was also a laundry room. And I wanted that wall to come down. I didn't want to have a laundry room in the island, right? Or just a little room that's between the living room and the kitchen. Definitely wasn't going to look good. So we needed to find a new place for that laundry room. So by limiting the laundry room in the house and putting it in the garage, we were able to have more square footage and more of an open concept in those units. And those are 2-bed, 1-bath units, 800 square feet each. So the more real estate or square footage we could gain, the better. So either way, we were putting hookups in the garage, and by eliminating the laundry room in both units and putting 2 units in the garage, running off the same hookups or running off the same brand new utilities, it was kind of an easy solution for that. And one day these may be long-term rentals, right? And as a tenant, for me, it'd be a little more attractive as a tenant if I can if I have a laundry room with multiple units in it, I can do 2 loads at once. It's going to be faster. I can spend less time doing laundry, almost like you're at a little mini laundromat as a tenant. So I thought that was also a nice selling point for future long-term tenants.
Yeah, so good. It's stuff that you don't normally think about, especially when you first start investing or like when you're initially house hacking. I mean, you probably didn't learn this stuff until maybe your first or second short-term rental, which is not that easy to think of when, you're first starting. So, staying on that same vein of like the short-term rental situation, everyone and their moms has one. I mean, shoot, I have one, and I have a lot of clients that want to have a short-term rental. The thing is that a lot of people are thinking that it's just a super saturated market, but sounds like you're continuing to invest in short-term rentals. I myself am continuing to, find them, buy them for my clients, and operate one myself. But I want to hear from you, like, why do you keep investing in short-term rentals when it's just such a concentrated market or saturated market at this point in time, especially in certain pockets of Denver that allow short-term rentals?
Yeah, I've just seen from experience as I've kind of taken baby steps into the short-term rental game that I've just seen that success. And there's different, I guess, parts of the short-term rental market that you can dive into. And I think a lot of people start off least I did. I had a long-term rental unit during COVID where the tenants lost their jobs and they moved out. I said, you know what? I'm going to try this short-term rental thing. And so I put a short-term rental in this upstairs unit, and that's the unit that does not have a laundry room. So I quickly found out why I should have put a laundry room upstairs or had access to a laundry room. That one short-term rental went well enough where I decided to do a second one. And as I was remodeling my quadplex that I mentioned, that unit needed to be remodeled no matter what. That tenant was moving out. It was dated. It needed a remodel. So I said, you know what? I'm going to remodel this unit specifically for short-term rentals or for a short-term rental.
Yeah.
And that property is in Wheat Ridge, and Wheat Ridge is very conducive or fairly conducive for licensing and allowing for short-term rentals. In the city of Wheat Ridge, you can have one short-term rental license as your primary and one non-primary short-term rental for every single individual. So when I did that remodel, I just added a few things here and there. I had a nice walk-in shower with glass doors. All the light fixtures, I had like little gold accents on them. All the hardware, I did black hardware. And I just had like a theme or a vibe in mind as I was remodeling. I didn't go overboard because one day, again, my plan B is that unit will be a long-term rental unit if I ever decide to step back and get out of the short-term rental game. But very important to have a plan B. I did not want to go so crazy with the finishes that a standard tenant wouldn't want to live there, or they'd be turned off by the vibe there. And then from there, I had that foundational understanding. I saw the track record. I got comfortable, which I think is very important for a lot of people because they wouldn't go out there and buy a million. Their first property is not going to be like a $1.1 million house like one of my short-term rentals, but they might feel okay with, putting a short-term rental in their basement unit or one of their units in their duplex and starting off small. After I saw those two be fairly successful, I added a third short-term rental in the basement unit of one of my properties. Went a little bit harder in the paint as far as the theme goes because I had that confidence. And then my next property was a very aggressive move. I bought a property that was built in 2016. So it was fairly turnkey. It was just over 1.1 million. And with the help of some people in my network, we ran the numbers and basically justified that purchase via short-term rental metrics. I will say that's my only property that does not have a good plan B. But it was a risk reward move for me. My plan B is I move into that property and live there if short-term rentals ever take a massive hit. But it's going well. It hit projections. I don't know if you want to talk numbers right now, but that property, rough numbers here, my expenses between the mortgage and the cleanings and the maintenance, I'm about $10,000 a month for expenses. And that property should do at least $15K per month in revenue. In December, which is, can be a light month, I actually did $17,000 in revenue. And I saw that. I'm like living and breathing it. And now I'm even more confident in that space. And as we've seen a slow season this winter, I've seen the smaller, lower price point units suffer the worst. The luxury property actually stayed strong. And I just think that's a different demographic. So because I've seen the strong performance there, that's why I'm buying the property I'm closing on next week in District 3 of Wheat Ridge, that I will create a similar concept there and go a little bit harder on the theme to hopefully replicate that first luxury short-term rental I did.
So good. Yeah, man. So this is Zen House that you're talking about, the 1.1 mil off Ames, right? Yeah.
Yep.
It's an awesome location, awesome neighborhood. I mean, was it north of Sloan's Lake area? Yeah. I mean, when we were there,
north of Sloan's Lake, just west of Berkeley.
Yeah, so good. I mean, we went over there for the open house, the release, the celebratory wow factor of Zen House. I mean, it definitely, like, I'm sure the pictures looked amazing. I haven't seen the listing itself on Airbnb, but oh my gosh, like me just being there, everything's so modern. Such an open concept and modern feel to it that the people that are looking for that exquisite, over the top experience, they're looking for an experience. Maybe that's the word I'm looking for. It's that, hey, I can stay here for a longer period of time and it feels like I'm not just staying in someone's house. Like it feels like it's for me. And then you bring a lot of that lifestyle aspect of it where the people that are looking for that higher price point, you give them a lot of those amenities for like to justify that price. So maybe if you can explain a little bit more, like how can you get 17K in revenue a month on this place? Like what is the justification in that, and why do people want to stay there?
Because I had the experience built up and I had the confidence going into this thing, I again went a little bit harder and I added a lot of amenities, like you mentioned. So when I bought the property, for the most part, it was turnkey. I added a few things like fixtures, and I refaced the fireplace to make it more modern. And that living space in that kitchen opens up to a really nice patio. Everyone loves being outside in Colorado. Great outdoor dining space there, a lounge area, and then there's already an existing hot tub there as well. So hot tubs are key, I think. On Black Friday, I bought 3 hot tubs, which was painful on the bank account, but one's going to the duplex, one's going to the property that I will hopefully close on next week, and one's going to an existing property I already have that has no hot tub. Because I've seen people love hot tubs, especially in the slow season in the winter. You want to be able to offer that amenity, because if they're looking at your listing versus a different listing, one has a hot tub, one doesn't, you know they're going to book that place with a hot tub, right? So you have to have those 100%. Amenities, and they're going to cover you during the slow season, which is the winter time here in Denver. On top of that, I utilized the garage space to add a sauna, which I've seen in other properties. I've seen like 2-person saunas in other properties that friends own. That 2-person sauna that I've seen retails for about $2,000. I actually found a 4-person sauna that retails close to $5,000-$6,000. I got it on Craigslist, a Facebook marketplace, for $600.
Wow.
So for me, that was a no-brainer. I had to run special power to it, a slightly higher powered outlet for that sauna, but got that thing wired up. That's in the garage. I put some like bamboo looking flooring on the ground, fake bamboo tree in there, try to give it those Zen vibes, hence Zen House, which we didn't actually pick the name until after we were done. My interior designer, she thought of the name because of the feeling there. And then on top of that, I like to work out. I like to be active. Health is a priority for me. I have a gym in my garage, and I had a gym in my first house hack that all the roommates used. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to put a gym in this garage alongside the sauna to add that, I guess, that amenity that will set me apart from the competition. And as we're going into a market like this or a slow season, the people that are doing this from a professional level, they're not just dabbling. The ones that are going all in and spending the extra money on things like hot tubs or saunas or even a gym in the garage, those are the listings that will stand out and that will be successful. People will still travel, and you want to be at the top of the list as far as, Rank Breeze is a tool that I use to see how my properties rank on searches for X number of guests. You want to be at the top of that list when people are looking to book an Airbnb or a short-term rental in the area. And if you're doing it well and adding those amenities and setting yourself apart, going a little bit harder in the design side as well, and just making it pop and offering like a unique space. Unique is definitely key. You don't want to be just another property that's maybe furnished really well. You want to go above and beyond and create that unique space. And you're kind of living in the hospitality business, honestly, at that point in time. And those guests those guests just have higher expectations. So far we've been able to meet those expectations, and everyone's been happy. And I'm just going to continue down that road and just kind of go all in on this higher end Airbnb space.
Love it, man. It's often with business, which you are running a business. The only 2 ways for you to make more money is selling more units or increasing the dollar per unit, And if you don't, like, our unit in this case or in this industry is a house. And that has a lot of limiting factors. And I mean, you can't just buy a house like every month or something like that. So what you can do is just increase the per unit cost. So how do you do that? You create that experience. And you've mentioned a couple times here that interior designer and the design of the place definitely makes it set above and beyond the competition, and which is why you got probably good occupancy and really good revenue off the place, even during the slow season like December at the time of this recording. So at this point, how important to you is a interior designer? And do you think that interior designers should have a higher place in people's consideration when furnishing these places, especially with, STRs becoming a dime a dozen.
Yeah, 100%. I think they're very important, and I learned that over time, just like everything else, right? My first couple of properties, I did not hire a designer, and I think I have an okay eye for design, but I also just did some fairly, I guess, basic or amateur hour themes in my mind at this point. Like one was mid-century modern, and the other one was just like a clean modern feel.
Yeah.
They both do well, but they're definitely not themed to the point where they stand out really well. I wish
Yeah.
if I could have gone back in time, having the confidence I have now, and the I guess the hindsight, I would have definitely hired a designer for every single property, and
Mm.
it was definitely a mental roadblock for me. I will be honest, and I understand why people might think that's a little intimidating. When I was doing Zen House, my designer kind of something hit home for me. She basically wanted me to change out the light fixtures. And I'm looking at the light fixtures. I'm like, these things are perfectly fine. Like, they look great. They're new. This place was built in 2016. I'm like, why do I have to change out this fixture? Like, no one's going to notice. And she basically said to me, she's like, you're right. No one is going to notice that single fixture, but that's not what it's about. It's about when someone walks into that space, they are going to feel a certain way. And that fixture is going to add to that feeling and how they feel when they walk into that property. It's not just one thing that makes or breaks it. It's a combination of everything that's going to make that short-term rental or that stay for them the best possible stay, and make people leave good reviews and keep coming back into the future.
Oh, that's
And
so
also,
good. Freaking love it.
yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll even add to that. We talked a little bit about your time allocation and kind of the who, not how concept. It definitely takes me a lot longer to pick out furnishings and fixtures and make sure everything vibes than it would my interior designer. So my opinion, because I'm saving time, that money is well spent. And how I would do it before is I would, put the couch in there and I'd say, okay, what's next? Maybe the end tables, or, you put a bed in the room and you say, okay, what's next? What nightstands do I want? For her, she can buy everything at once and she can see the vision. And everything is purchased at one time. And then we put everything in, we build all the furniture. I have a couple of handyman I use to do that because I realized that wasn't a good use of my time. But everything is done in a very seamless way versus before. I was going like item by item because I didn't know how it would look in real life next to the next item I needed to place. So then you add shipping time and delays and trips to IKEA. I was doing it in a very inefficient manner because I was not ordering and picking everything out at the same time.
I gotcha. Yeah. And yeah, like you said, it just all goes down to what's my cost per hour. I mean, I'm sure like you being a manager, being an asset manager now with your own portfolio, all of that is taken into consideration. Like this is super important to you to make sure it works. But at the same time, you got to have the installation, the ordering, and all that good stuff done by someone else because you got some big things to do in the meantime. So speaking of big things, I know this is something that we didn't even gloss over earlier, but I know that you also run or at least started a small business back in 2015, 2016. And that's something I do want to just expand on and talk about, especially with a lot of the audience here or the listeners. They have small businesses. They either have pop-up shops or small brick and mortars that they just want to keep in tune with the Denver community, and they just want to make sure that they're doing the right things as far as marketing goes and understand what the overall environment of Denver is like. So I guess I'm curious, maybe just starting what the business was. I'll let you reveal that and how it is doing right now.
Yeah, definitely a piece of my life that I don't talk a whole lot about anymore. As I'm trying to change my identity to being the real estate guy and the short-term rental guy, and as I'm starting to raise capital. But when I first moved to Colorado, me and my buddies, my two roommates at the time, we wanted to start a business. I have my MBA, and I've always wanted to start a business or kind of be in an entrepreneurial spot. And the business that we decided to start was a tent and party rental company, because one of the guys had experience working for one of these companies, setting up tents on the week as a summer gig. And the other guy, he wanted to start a DJ business. He was kind of dabbling in that space. So we're like, you know what, let's buy a few tents and some equipment and do people's parties on the weekends. Well, it was a very slow start. We had a little bit of inventory we stored in our garage. And that was in 2014, 2015 timeframe. But when I quit my job in 2016, that's when I had a bunch of time on my hands. And we just got basically a big phone call from Top Chef, who was recording their episodes in Colorado. And we actually did the equipment and the tents for their recordings downtown Denver. We went to Food and Wine Aspen with them. They put us up in a hotel. And that's when I was like, wow, like this business can actually make money. So I started pouring into it. And because I had the time, because I just left my W-2 job, things just aligned for me. I think what's key with this business is it was a lot of work. It was not easy. You really have to grind and wear a lot of hats as a business owner, a small business owner, especially as you're looking to scale. But for me, it served a purpose. It helped me get into a position where I was no longer being financed because I didn't have a W-2 job, but I created a business that was successful, put myself on a W-2, took owner's draws, and I became bankable, or I was able to be financed because of the business income and that track record. That's still the case to this day. Even though I'm trying to exit that business fairly heavily right now. We just listed the warehouse for sale. The business will live on, but the real estate I own that I bought for the business will be sold. I'll probably do a 1031 exchange into something else. But the key here is that business for me was a stepping stone to continue to grow my real estate portfolio and give me the time and freedom to buy real estate and to focus where I wanted to focus versus being chained to a desk job and on someone else's schedule.
Yeah, that was a question I was going to ask too, is how the heck are you getting financing for all these homes, right? I mean, having no solid W-2 salary, and maybe this is something that I want to ask you as well, going from that solid salary, asset manager, fidelity, to I'm going to start investing in real estate and start my own business. A lot of people that go into that asset management and get an MBA, and here you are doing things that are no longer tied to that MBA. A lot of people find that to be almost a sunk cost, and they feel almost guilty going into these different ventures when they have like a perfectly good MBA and things like that. So I'm curious how you got over that mindset and what really projected you into that new venture for real estate investing.
Yeah, it was definitely tough. It wasn't easy. It was essentially like a mini identity crisis. I mean, this is who you are. This is who you've worked towards, and you've put a lot of time, effort, and money into that, right? But for me, I needed to prioritize happiness and lifestyle, and that job didn't make me happy, right? So if you're not happy, then what's the point of having a job and having money, right? Monday through Friday is a big chunk of the week, and I decided that I did no longer wanted to, dread going into the office or feel like I wasn't stimulated or being challenged in the ways that I wanted to be challenged, right? So the growth just kind of slowed down for me. For me, both my W-2 jobs I had, both in financial services, one in the wealth management side, and then one in the asset management side, working with their sector and investment product group. Both of them, I learned a lot on the front end, and then I got bored. So I just wanted out of that job regardless. But it was tough because when I left, I essentially didn't know who I was. And I would meet, a friend of a friend or meet someone new, and I'd say, hey, my name is Mike. I used to work in finance. And that took a while to get over that because I thought that was the cool, sexy thing at the time. But now I realize that doing your own thing, owning your own business, building wealth, having real estate investments, like that is a lot cooler than having a W-2 job that pays well and makes you wear a suit and tie to work, right? So it's just a mindset shift. It took me a little while to get over that, but as I put myself in the right room with the right people that were doing similar things, I realized that it was just kind of a means to the end for me. And being a real estate investor and a business owner was what I wanted to do into the foreseeable future. Real quick tangent, but a good friend of mine, Sina Getmary, he just started a podcast as well, but super good dude. But he was a dentist before. He just dove into real estate investing, and that's a pretty serious career that has very specialized education, very expensive education. And he was same thing with him. Like he basically realized hey, I don't want to wake up anymore and go to work and work on people's teeth. So he quit his job. He got a lot of backlash from family and friends, I would say, as far as like, why are you doing this? It doesn't make any sense. But,
Totally.
him and I definitely identify as individuals that prioritize like happiness and, life's short. So you got to do what makes you happy, but also you have a ton of time too. Like pivoting in 2016 was, that was years ago, and I've had so much time to build something new. I didn't have to stay in that job as much as I thought I had to stay in that job, or other people thought I needed to stay in that job. I have plenty of time to pivot and build something new. You hear about guys all the time that switch careers at 40 or 50, or even pursue something new in their 60s or 70s, right? Just don't let that mindset hold you back, I guess, in your pursuit to happiness.
Yeah. Love it, dude. So as of right now, what is your portfolio like, and what are you trying to work towards the future? Because I know you mentioned you're trying to raise capital these days, and what is that capital going towards? If future investors or listeners that are investors, potential investors, what can they look forward to?
Yeah, I'm a big advocate of, I guess, asset allocation. I focus a lot on that in my career, the 6 years I was in finance. And there's definitely a piece for real estate in someone's portfolio. There's not to nerd out too hard, but there's 11 sectors of the economy, and we're talking tech, healthcare, real estate is one of those, right? And so what I want to do for people is bring my experience in that world and blend that with real estate, and help people create that allocation to real estate in a way that it's actually going to build wealth versus just buying a real estate stock or a REIT or something like that, right? Have ownership in something, whether that's from an active or passive standpoint. So if they want to be active, I'll certainly help them or guide them in the right direction as far as owning or buying their first Airbnb. Maybe working with someone like yourself to buy a house hack or something to that nature, right? But if they want to be passive, I can also help them invest into different syndications, or invest with me, or partner on a property that I may want to fund or buy, with together, right? As I'm looking to get out of my business, which has my W-2, partnering with individuals that want to build wealth, that want to be passive, is definitely going to be key. So that's my I guess my selfish reason is I would like to raise capital, use other people's money, but also give them the benefit of owning real estate and teach them along the way. Coaching is huge for me. I love connecting people. I love coaching people, especially those that will actually execute on what you discuss. That fires me up. That's why I got into finance in the first place, is because I liked helping people with their financial portfolio and help them meet their goals through that portfolio. But now I just see so much. There's much better opportunity in real estate to help individuals meet their goals in life.
Totally, man. That coaching aspect of it really does fire up a lot of people. Like, knowing, it's funny, like a lot of the coaches are in that real estate space. They see the results of getting the appreciation, the loan pay downs, the cash flow, the tax advantages, all that good stuff. And they're like, guys, you need to hear about this. This is crazy. And I'm a full believer myself. And I guess this is something I'm putting out into the world, even through your network too, Mike, is that I do want to be an educator myself, in terms of, I spent like 7 years of my community college, or 7 years of my life in community college. And I found like the best professors came from that, because I was doing night classes and they came from their 9 to 5 to teach at night a lot of these community college students, including myself. And I wanted to be that person who's a realtor from 9 to 5 or whatever that is, but then teach investing or teach financial literacy at night at community colleges. And this is like the formative years, 18 to 22 or whatever those ages are. I mean, I stayed in there till I was like 24. But like the thing is that they don't know what they don't know. And here we are, like, trying to educate the general population of like, this can be possible for you. It's an amazing way for people to just build wealth. It's the easiest way for the average American to build wealth. It's through real estate. So is there anything else that I'm missing on as far as like what you're trying to accomplish? Any sort of future plans for the Mike Brockway portfolio?
Yeah, outside of just getting that property closed next week and getting it launched and optimized, I guess my Q2 or Q1 of 2023, for me, the theme is just optimization and taking what I have right now and making it run efficiently. I just hired two virtual assistants. One has experience in long-term rentals, one has experience in short-term rentals. So it's just like building that team out, right? I
Awesome.
think that there's gonna be a lot of power in that as I start to acquire more properties. I can have those individuals help, maybe trying to find some off-market deals or just taking some things off my plate so I can focus on coaching and talking to people and just building, I guess, just building up that space and that time in my day where I can help others and step away from the active management side is really my number one goal.
Yeah.
And just hopefully, and that will help me scale my portfolio once I have the time to allocate towards even talking to more individuals like yourself on a daily basis.
It's all about that time freedom, baby. Man, that's the biggest point of it all. It's all about getting your time back. Most important currency these days. Well, cheers, man. Thanks for hanging out, Mike. I guess before we close out and give each other's contact information out to the audience and listeners, I like to turn the tables. I like to give you the mic and give you the opportunity to be the interviewer, and I'll be the interviewee. So, any three questions you want to ask me, I'll give you up to three. So, let's hear it.
All right, man. Let's do it. The first one is just a little fun fact about Denver. Denver is one of the only cities that has 6 professional sports teams. Can you name all 6?
Freaking love it. Awesome. Nuggets, Avs, Rockies, Broncos. Damn.
Those are the most well-known top 4 right there. 2
yeah,
more to go.
right. Can you give me a hint on like maybe the sport?
One World
Unless
Cup
you don't know them either. Oh, shit.
World Cup theme.
I can't give you the last two. Damn it.
The last 2 are the Colorado Rapids and then the Colorado Mammoth, which I believe is lacrosse.
Lacrosse. Damn. Thank you for that question.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm that much closer to be a native. Nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just another one of those things like, Denver's just has power in those having those sports teams around, right? I mean, you think about other cities out there that it's a big news for them to have an NFL team where we have those 6 professional teams. So definitely more power as far as the growth and just being in Denver and the lifestyle. All right, man, we'll get a little more deep in the real estate side of things here, but I think there's a place for a lot of investors eventually. Maybe it's not now, maybe it's in the future, depending on their lifestyle and what they want. But I think passive investing is definitely something that's become, a little bit closer to my heart. I'm in a few different passive investments as a limited partner, but what passive investments are you investing in, or which ones do you like that you're looking at right now?
Yeah, totally. I love the syndication model, especially having that part ownership, tax benefits. It's almost like you did buy the property, but at a fraction of the price, at whatever you're comfortable with, as long as it's over $50K or something like that. You need to have some significant skin in the game for certain people. So anywho, I'm an LP on a 44 unit in Austin. A couple of my buddies, I met through a mastermind group, multifamily group. They are still buying a lot of multifamily in Austin. This is one of their first, and it's still a long process. It's a C apartment complex in a B plus neighborhood in the Domain area. If you're at all familiar, it's close to the new MLS stadium over there. Okay. Pretty significant. I think what's really cool about it is that, it's that whole up and coming thing. I think it's just a matter of time before it gets to that point where it's like, this is a solid investment. I feel like that appreciation game, I feel like you can't lose on appreciation. Cash flow, that might change with vacancies, rent, things like that. However, if you're always going to be in a desirable neighborhood in a location that people want to visit, you can't lose. So I've seen that already with San Diego. I've seen that already with Denver, and I feel like I'm seeing it currently with Austin right now. So it's just a matter of time before it really pays off. So that's the only one I'm LPing on right now. And I'm always looking for the next one. I think being a passive investor is such a good way for your money to move without it just sitting on the sidelines.
Yeah. I think it's awesome you're doing that. And I like to look at it as a way like, everyone has active income, whether it's your W-2 job or your real estate investments, your Airbnbs, and you take that active income and you fuel those passive investments.
Yeah.
And if you stagger those, maybe you say you get into one every single year. As those mature or those deals, you have liquidity events with those deals as they refi or whatnot or sell, hypothetically, every single year, as long as you stack those passive investments, you'll have payouts over time. So, definitely speaks to the power of getting those properties, creating that active income, that cash flow to eventually maybe fund something that's passive as your lifestyle or your desire to invest in active things changes potentially. Awesome, man. Good stuff. And then I think the last one, number 3 is, what does your buy box look right now? What's next for you as far as purchases go? Like what property are you targeting right now? What's number 1 in your mind?
Yeah. Going back to the whole desirability, the tourism, the wants for people to stay in certain locations. I think we're going to continue down that path, and we're looking for a short-term rental over in the Estes Park area. For those unfamiliar, it's over next to Rocky Mountain National Park, small town, but if you just Google image search it, it looks like a Hallmark card. It's amazing. I love that place.
Yeah.
So that's what we're looking for. We found that there's certain complexes there that have that full package of like management, cleaners already built in. The furnishings stay with the property once it's sold. I mean, we want it to be as passive as possible. It sounds like, we're kind of in the same boat here. It's like where we just want our money to work for ourselves, and our higher value work or jobs. Let's say for me as a real estate agent, like I want to help people get house hacks. So I think if we just buy that and have it set and we're good to go, and we could stay there for like 3-4 days, every season or something like that, golden. It's something that if it's someplace that we want to visit, then I know it's going to be a good investment.
Yeah, definitely. You guys live here and you kind of live and breathe that Denver, that Colorado culture. But it's an awesome place to be, whether you have been here forever or you're coming in from out of town. And that's even more power for you as an agent, right? I mean, now you're getting experience to a different type of short-term rental that could be a little bit more passive, right? It sounds like. So that's awesome. Yeah. Awesome knowledge to have and a good tool in your toolbox for sure.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Yeah. I'm really excited for it. And if anything, it's a reason for my family to actually come out and visit me from San Diego. Like they're coming up with all these excuses. Like, I don't like the cold. It's too high up there as far as the elevation, not the weed. But as far as, it's just another way for people to come and visit us too. So with that being said, man, I appreciate your time, Mike. It's always good to have someone, a like-minded individual, real estate investor, come on to it. And you're a very experienced dude in the industry. So I love it. As far as how people can get a hold of you, what's the best way for people to get in contact?
Probably the best way is Instagram. My handle's at mbrockway120. I try to post a little bit of content there every now and then. Definitely could be better at it, but I'd say just reach out to me on Instagram or follow along on the investing journey. And then also likewise, man, my pleasure to be here. Definitely solid conversation, and I appreciate you having me on.
Hell yeah, man. Well, with that being said, this is the Invest in Denver podcast hosted by, or a production by the Foray team, hosted by yours truly, Ian Jimeno. And thanks, Mike. I'll see you at the next networking event, man. Cheers.
Oh, man. Can't wait. Thank you.